Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever Discussion Review. This was like my most anticipated sequel ever growing up. I absolutely surfed the internet like periodically for any news on Cabin Fever 2, and I was a huge Eli Roth fan, a huge fan of the first film. Couldn't wait. Then Eli Roth, the rumors were that he didn't talk about it much during Hostel or anything, but he would say, "Oh, Lionsgate didn't like my idea. He really didn't even tell the whole full story or whatnot." And then later on he says that his pitch was that he pitched an animated film with Deputy Winston basically necrophiliating the corpses, which sounds completely absurd. You can't even tell if he's serious, but he says it in a few different interviews as if he was serious. I don't think he really cared about it, and it's not like him and Lionsgate were on bad terms. Who knows the full story? He'll never say because he's being fake, because here's the thing, Lionsgate paid for his next few films, Hostel 1 and Hostel 2, so he wasn't about to badmouth the studio. So they went on and moved on without him to do a serious sequel. And then it basically went into post-production hell, because they filmed it in 2006. They finally got it filmed. We're like, alright. And they kind of marketed it as Ryder Strong as the lead. We're like, alright, here it comes. Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever. Can't wait for this to come out. It was supposed to come out by like October 2006. Fast forward like 3 years later, they finally end up releasing it at a film festival, and then it doesn't even officially come out on DVD until early 2010. So, and I remember we got plot details back in 2006, and I heard that it was going to be a prom setting where the kids, there was like an outbreak at prom. And what I thought they were going to do is they were going to all like drink the punch at prom and then go back to someone's cabin to go into its natural, it's Cabin Fever, to go into its natural cabin setting. That doesn't happen at all. I wanted to go like Stifler in American Pie, like Stifler's cabin. But does that happen? No. It's an outbreak in the school, and it plays off like an 80s teen comedy, upbeat music, and Ty West has since disowned it. There's a whole lot of drama with this sequel, and who knows, he was such a young director at the time. He was only about 26 when he filmed it, and so Lionsgate basically used him to control him and basically he says the producers and executives are the ones who shape the final project, and he's like, "Oh, don't blame me for it sucking." And apparently the guy who co-wrote the script with Eli Roth helped to write the script, which is kind of surprising, but for what it is, it's actually pretty decent if you accept it for what it is, even though it's out of its natural setting. Anyway, on to actual film and what happens into it. So it leads right off with Ryder Strong getting splattered by the bus. He's infected. He's in the creek, or the crick. If you're a hillbilly, that's how they say creek. So he gets out of the crick, and he gets splattered by the bus. And it's like animated, like these weird like cartoon like title sequence. And no, then Winston shows up and he's like, "Man, tuck it. Girls know how to fuck it." He's like, "Laugh it off, man. This ain't shit." He's like, "You hit a moose." Even though it's Ryder Strong's like dead body, Paul's dead body like sprawled out on the freaking road. It's hilarious. And you're like, and so the whole time you thought Ryder Strong was going to be a lot in it and not just in the opening sequence, but then you're like, since they were going to bring him back, and you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Then it goes into the animated sequence, so maybe there is some truth. They did that like to pay homage to like Eli Roth or something, like, hey, we'll do the animated opening, and it does like upbeat like country style music, and we all know what happens. The home down water semi-truck goes into town, to a different town, and delivers water at this high school. And this high school's dress code is like, it has a dress code, even though it doesn't feel like a private school or a Catholic school or anything. But hey, it has a dress code. and there just so happens to be a prom happening. It's day of prom, and they're about seniors. So everyone knows what that day is like. We've all been through that day, and we basically, the main cast follows these two losers, and the big fat retard comic relief, he actually does a pretty decent job. And he has pretty few good lines, but he's so much of a loser that he asks the class slut, "Will you please go to prom with me?" And that's the one where she has herpes on her lips and she gives him dome in the bathroom. Classic scene. There's a lot of good scenes necessary scenes that you'd have to have for a Cabin Fever sequel, and it's really grotesque. You gotta have the grotesque and nastiness with the skin disease and the innuendos that they use in it. There's a bunch of good ones. And basically, you gotta mention the prom king making out with the fat bitch in the pool. The first time you see it, you're like, is this real? Is this really happening? And it doesn't even make any sense. And the way that the kid acts, you can't even tell if he's playing a joke on her or it's real. And I love how he tries to help her like with the pole, and he ends up cracking his head on the side of the pool and falling into the pool. I mean, there's a bunch of great scenes like that. I mean, it isn't completely worthless. Although I was just as disappointed with everyone the first time I saw it. But it's been a few years now, and you could accept it for what it is. And you're like, okay, it's alright, but I would like it to be in its cabin setting. But anyway, Deputy Winston basically goes into detective mode, and he ends up kind of like getting out of character and searching like the records, which is a pretty good scene. And like, then he delivers the great line where he's like,
"Oh man, you're gonna be a hero for this. You're gonna get the sashimi. That's the primo pussy, man. No smell."
I really hated the girl in this, the final girl, and the whole ending doesn't really make sense. How you think Winston's like onto something and he's going out of town or going into town to see more investigation with his cousin, or he's headed to Wambusal, who the hell knows, and he just picks up the girl in the bloody dress, and then they drive off, and then just goes to the class slut at the stripper and shows how it's like an outbreak, but whatever. And so then the future of this franchise, basically they're going to do Outbreak, which is still in development, and apparently they already shot Patient Zero, which is a prequel, the origins of the disease, and then there's the Outbreak, which supposedly might be a sequel to this, but it's supposed to be set in the Caribbean also. It doesn't sound that interesting. Anyway, this was JBM. I give it a C+ overall. Click on the channel, Mr. Creepshow9, for my Cabin Fever review, and Eli Roth 10 years later discussion is what I'm going to be doing, because I'm doing this in '03. And I'm out. Thanks for watching.